When we talk about killing negative thinking, we're not referring to denying reality or ignoring life's challenges. What we're doing is addressing a deeply rooted, biologically driven process in the brain, a pattern of self-sabotage that has real, measurable consequences on our mental health, our ability to take action, and ultimately, our performance in life. Negative thoughts aren't just ideas. They're neural loops. They're circuits firing in the brain, often unconsciously, shaped by early life experience, trauma, stress, and chronic exposure to environments that condition the mind to expect failure, rejection, or disappointment. But here's the good news: the brain is plastic. That means it can change, and we have agency, real biological tools, to shift our mindset from one that sabotages growth to one that supports it. This shift doesn't happen through willpower alone. It happens through deliberate, consistent action that rewires the brain over time. Breathing techniques to regulate the autonomic nervous system, cold exposure to build stress resilience, dopamine management to reduce cravings for negativity and build traction for forward movement. It's about creating a biology that supports clarity, confidence, and action. When you kill negative thinking, what you're actually doing is interrupting those old, reflexive circuits that keep you trapped in fear or rumination. You're giving your brain the space to form new, empowering patterns, and once you start to experience what it feels like to live without the weight of constant inner criticism or fear of failure, you realize negative thinking was never your identity. It was just a habit, and habits can be broken. So today, we're going to break them, deliberately, scientifically, with tools you can apply in real life, not just abstract ideas. Let's begin. Let me know if you'd like this followed by key points or a full-length motivational script. Most people believe their negative thinking is just who they are, that it's a fixed part of their personality, something permanent, something they have to learn to live with. But what the science tells us is that negative thinking is not a trait, it's a pattern, it's a loop in the brain, an electrical circuit made of neurons firing together over and over again until it becomes automatic. And here's the key: what fires together wires together. So every time you entertain a self-defeating thought, every time you dwell on what's wrong, what might go wrong, or how you failed in the past, you are quite literally reinforcing those neural pathways. You're deepening the groove, but the brain is adaptable. It can change, and that means the same way you built those negative patterns, you can start unbuilding them. You can interrupt the loop and redirect it. This isn't just positive thinking, it's biological reality. See, the human brain is built to predict. It's constantly looking for patterns, especially those that helped you survive in the past. If your brain learned early on that expecting failure or staying hypervigilant kept you safe in some way, it starts defaulting to that mode, even when it's no longer useful. That's why you can be in a safe place in your life, but still feel like something's always about to go wrong. Your nervous system is running on an outdated script. And unless you update that script, unless you challenge those assumptions and rewire those neural circuits, your brain will continue to serve you fear instead of clarity, doubt instead of direction. Now, how do you kill negative thinking if it's been wired so deeply? The first step is awareness. You can't change a loop if you don't know when it's running. So start paying attention to the moment a negative thought emerges, not to judge it, but to observe it, like you're watching a program on a screen. The more you observe without reacting, the more space you create between the stimulus and the response. That space is where transformation begins, because in that space, you can choose a different thought, a different action, a different state. You can also use the body to intervene in the mind. Your thoughts and your physiology are in constant conversation. If you're in a slouched posture, breathing shallowly, eyes darting around, your brain interprets that as threat. It reinforces the negativity loop. But if you straighten your posture, slow your breathing, and take control of your visual focus, you're sending safety signals to the brain. That calms the threat detection systems, reduces the noise, and allows the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and rational thought, to come back online. Once that system is active, you can start redirecting those circuits with intention. What people miss is this: repetition is everything. You don't need a single breakthrough, you need consistency. You need to show your brain, again and again, that negative thinking is no longer useful, no longer needed. That happens through behavior, not just belief. Every time you act in opposition to your negative thought, when you take action despite fear, when you speak encouragement instead of self-criticism, you are training your brain. You're weakening the old loop and building a new one. And over time, that new loop becomes the dominant one. You see, it's not that your brain is against you. It's trying to protect you using an outdated model. You have to give it a new one, and that takes work. But it's the kind of work that compounds. It's the kind of effort that builds a version of yourself who no longer defaults to anxiety, hesitation, or despair. Instead, you begin to default to focus, to clarity, to strength. And eventually, you don't have to fight negative thinking anymore, because the loop you've built is one of confidence and control, and it's stronger than the one you replaced. So don't fall for the lie that your thoughts are who you are. They're just habits of the mind, and like all habits, they can be broken. When we talk about mindset, we often picture it as something purely mental, like it floats above the body, untouchable by the physical world. But the truth is, your mindset is deeply connected to your physiological state. In fact, your body sets the stage for how your mind operates, and if your body is in a stressed, dysregulated state, your thoughts will follow suit. You can't separate the two. If you're tired, dehydrated, shallow breathing, or overstimulated, your nervous system gets stuck in what's called a sympathetic state, fight or flight mode. And in that state, your brain is not optimized for clarity, focus, or positivity. It's optimized for survival. That's when negative thinking thrives. That's when your mind starts scanning for what could go wrong, for how things might fall apart, for what you failed at in the past. This is why so many people feel mentally drained even when nothing is visibly wrong. Their system is out of alignment. Their state is creating mental static. And they try to fix it with affirmations, or by reading motivational quotes, or by trying to will their way into a better mindset. But the biology isn't on their side. You can't outthink a stressed nervous system. You have to regulate it, because your internal state is the foundation of everything your mind does. It determines whether you see possibility or threat, whether you respond with calm or panic, whether you move forward or freeze. So the first step isn't to think better, it's to feel better. That doesn't mean chasing pleasure, it means stabilizing your system. One of the most powerful ways to do that is through the breath. Long, slow exhalations, longer than your inhales, activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the calming branch. When you slow your breathing, you're sending a signal to the brain. We are not in danger, we are safe. And when your brain receives that signal, it shuts down the survival mode and opens up access to your higher cognitive functions, creativity, decision, making, willpower. Another critical factor is sleep. People underestimate how much poor sleep distorts your mindset. When you're sleep deprived, your amygdala, the part of your brain that detects threats, becomes hyperactive. That means you're more reactive, more emotional, and more likely to interpret neutral events as negative. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part of the brain, loses its edge. You wake up in a state of threat even if there's nothing wrong, and from that place everything feels heavier. The obstacles look bigger. The motivation feels weaker. So if you're trying to kill negative thinking but you're only sleeping 5 hours a night, you're fighting uphill. Hydration, light exposure, physical movement, they all play a role. Even something as simple as getting sunlight in your eyes within the first hour of waking can reset your internal clock, improve mood, regulating chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, and stabilize your energy levels across the day. These aren't hacks, they're biological levers. When you pull the right levers, you get the right mindset, and when you ignore them, you're leaving your mental state to chance. But let's take it further. Your posture matters, your visual field matters. When you're slouched, head down, eyes narrow, you're mimicking the physiology of someone in defeat, and your brain picks up on that. It reinforces a mindset of withdrawal. On the other hand, when you open your chest, raise your gaze, and widen your field of view, you're telling your brain, we are in control, we are open, we are engaged. That's not just psychology, that's biology. It's also important to realize that your state can be shifted in real time. You don't need to wait until tomorrow or next week to feel better. You can change how you feel in this moment by changing how you breathe, how you sit, what you focus on, or what environment you're in. Movement is a fast way to shift. Go for a walk. Do a few minutes of cardio. Jump into cold water. The action pulls you out of your mental loop and into the present, which is the only place change actually happens. Once your system is regulated, then you can introduce the mindset work. That's when affirmations start to land. That's when gratitude becomes accessible. That's when visualization becomes powerful. Not when you're flooded with cortisol, but when your body and brain are aligned. The bottom line is this: your mindset isn't just a product of what you think. It's a product of how you live. If your body is in chaos, your mind will echo that chaos. But if your body is calm, energized, and well supported, your mind will reflect that. Regulate the state, and the mindset will follow. One of the most overlooked aspects of killing negative thinking is understanding the role of focus, where you place your attention moment by moment, because focus isn't just a mental skill. It's a biological mechanism that directly shapes how your brain functions, how your chemistry shifts, and how you experience your reality. The human brain can't process everything at once, so it filters. It prioritizes, and what you focus on becomes your internal world. If you continually focus on what's missing, what could go wrong, or what has gone wrong in the past, your brain will interpret that as the most relevant information, and it will continue wiring circuits around fear, doubt, and hesitation. But here's what's powerful about focus. It's under your control. You can train it, and by training your focus, you begin to override negativity at the root level. Not by fighting the thoughts one by one, but by starving them of attention. Think of your attention like a spotlight. Wherever you point it, energy and awareness follow. If you shine that light on failure, on pain, on disappointment, then that's what grows in your perception. But if you deliberately shift your spotlight onto progress, solutions, opportunities, even the smallest wins, you begin to reshape the narrative your brain is telling, and over time, that narrative becomes your new default. This isn't just philosophy. It's rooted in neurobiology. Dopamine, the chemical of motivation, drive, and reward, is tightly linked to what we focus on. When you focus on possibility, when you set your sights on something meaningful and move toward it, dopamine is released. That release doesn't just make you feel good. It enhances learning, builds motivation, and reinforces the circuits tied to that behavior. You start building momentum. But if your focus is on all the ways things could fail, the brain responds differently. It produces chemicals that heighten alertness and fear, like norepinephrine and cortisol, which amplify the negativity loop and make it harder to take action. So your focus is not just influencing your thoughts. It's influencing your brain chemistry. It's deciding what neural circuits get stronger. That's why shifting your focus even slightly is so powerful. Let's say you wake up and immediately think about how tired you are, or how behind you feel, or what went wrong yesterday. You've just cued your brain to generate more of that experience. But if instead you train yourself to focus, just for a few minutes, on what's in your control today, what small step you can take forward, what you're grateful for or excited to tackle, the brain responds differently. It releases chemicals that signal movement, clarity, and potential. The biology shifts, your mind catches up, and before long, you've flipped the entire tone of your day, not because the world changed, but because your focus did. This is not about ignoring real problems. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about understanding that focus is a tool. When used deliberately, it becomes a compass that directs the brain where you want it to go. And the more you train that focus toward what you can do rather than what you can't, the more you teach your brain to become solution-oriented rather than fear-driven. This is the fundamental skill that separates those who get stuck in loops of negativity from those who break out and move forward. Training your focus is like training a muscle. It won't be strong at first. Your mind will wander. It'll want to drift back to the familiar pull of negative thoughts. That's normal, but every time you notice the drift and gently pull your attention back, whether that's to your breath, your goals, your present moment, you're strengthening your control over that spotlight. Over time, it becomes automatic. You begin to default to clarity, even under pressure. You start catching the negative thoughts before they spiral. You replace them with targeted action and forward momentum. You can use focus practices to reinforce this. Simple tools like setting a timer for deep work with no distractions, journaling wins from the day before, or using visual cues like a written goal or a mantra on your desk. All of these anchor your attention to something constructive. They cue your brain to prioritize what matters most, because again, the brain can't process everything. It's going to lock onto what you repeatedly show it is important, so make what you focus on count. In the end, attention is everything. It's how you shape your day, your habits, your mindset, and ultimately, your life. Direct it with purpose, and you take the power away from negative thinking and hand it back to yourself. One of the most powerful realizations you can have when dealing with negative thinking is this: your body can lead your mind. When you're stuck in a mental spiral, when everything feels overwhelming or hopeless, the instinct is often to think your way out of it. You sit there, trying to find the perfect thought to cancel out the negative one. But that rarely works, because in that state, when the nervous system is activated, when stress hormones are high, when your system is in freeze or overwhelm, you don't have access to your clearest thoughts. The prefrontal cortex, which helps you think rationally and plan effectively, is downregulated. That's why it feels like you're trapped. But what most people miss is that you don't need to think your way out. You can move your way out, because action physical movement, forward momentum, is one of the most effective ways to shut down negative thought loops and shift your state in real time. Think about the last time you felt stuck mentally, maybe anxious, overwhelmed, uncertain. What was your body doing? Chances are you were still, maybe sitting down, slouched, looking down, not breathing deeply. That posture, that stillness, is reinforcing the mental state. It's creating a feedback loop where your lack of motion signals danger or defeat to the brain, which then reinforces the negative thoughts. But the moment you stand up, move, or even just shift your breathing, you break that loop. You change the data your body is sending to the brain. That's the key. You don't need to have it all figured out to take a step forward. In fact, that one step often reveals more clarity than hours of internal debate ever could. This is what it means when we say emotion follows motion. The body moves first and the emotions catch up. It's not about pretending to feel good when you don't. It's about using movement to change the internal signals that shape how you feel. A short walk, a set of push-ups, jumping into a cold shower, any form of deliberate action shifts the chemistry in the body. Blood flows differently, breathing changes, hormones like adrenaline and dopamine begin to rise. That signals energy, possibility, control. Your thoughts then begin to align with that new state, and here's the important part. This doesn't require motivation, it creates it. People wait to feel motivated to take action, but biologically it works the other way around. You act first and motivation follows. You move before your mind is ready, and your mind learns from the movement. It learns we're not stuck, we're not helpless, we're in control. And once your mind gets that message, the narrative begins to shift. Doubt starts to fade, confidence starts to build, and that's not just a psychological shift, it's a neurochemical one. You've used your body to rewire your brain in real time. This is one of the fastest ways to kill a negative thought pattern. Not by sitting in it, not by debating it, but by disrupting it with motion. The best part is, the action doesn't need to be big. Even a small act, getting up, changing your environment, taking one task off your to-do list, can create enough momentum to break the inertia. Because once you're in motion, staying in motion becomes easier. That's Newton's first law, and it applies to your nervous system too. A body in motion creates a mind in motion. And a mind in motion doesn't spiral the same way a stagnant one does. you also start to build a different kind of identity. When you use action to respond to negative thoughts, you reinforce the idea that you are someone who moves forward even when things are hard. That self-concept of being resilient, of being proactive, of being in control, becomes the foundation of a stronger, more adaptive mindset, and over time, the negative thoughts don't show up as often. They don't hit as hard because you've trained your system to respond with motion, not paralysis. It's a subtle shift, but it's life-changing. Instead of asking, how do I stop thinking this way? You start asking, what can I do right now that moves me forward? That question rewires the brain. It redirects attention, it shifts biology, it builds a loop of empowerment that becomes more familiar than the old loop of doubt, and that's how real transformation begins, not with the perfect thought, but with the next action. So don't wait for your mind to feel ready. Use your body to lead, let movement speak louder than fear, let action rewire the loop, let motion create the mindset you've been searching for. When it comes to killing negative thinking, one of the most misunderstood pieces is consistency. People often assume that breakthroughs happen in a single, powerful moment, that with the right mindset or insight, everything changes overnight. But that's not how the nervous system works. That's not how the brain rewires. Real, lasting transformation happens in small, repeated actions over time. The brain changes through repetition. The circuits you activate consistently become stronger, and the circuits you ignore begin to fade. This is called neuroplasticity. It's the process by which your experiences, especially the ones you repeat, shape the structure and function of your brain. So if negative thinking has become your default, it's not because you're weak or broken. It's because that pattern has been rehearsed, consciously or unconsciously over time. The mind has practiced focusing on threat, uncertainty, or failure, and those circuits have become efficient. They fire faster. They feel automatic, but here's the key: you can build a new pattern. You can literally train your brain to respond differently, but it doesn't happen by doing it once. It happens through consistency, through choosing over and over again to respond in a way that aligns with your goals instead of your fears. Think of it like learning a new skill. You wouldn't expect to learn an instrument by playing it once. You wouldn't expect to build muscle by going to the gym one time. The same principle applies to mindset. Every time you catch a negative thought and shift your focus, every time you move your body instead of staying frozen, every time you breathe through stress instead of reacting to it, you're not just managing your moment. You're training your system. You're laying down new wiring, and the more you repeat those small wins, the more automatic they become. This is where most people fall off. They think they need intensity, a big push, a dramatic change. But what they really need is consistency. It's not about being perfect. It's about being deliberate. One deep breath in the middle of stress, one clear intention at the start of the day, one moment of action when your mind says, I don't feel like it. These choices seem small, but they compound. They send a signal to your brain, this is who I am now, and the brain listens to repetition. It doesn't care if it's exciting, it cares if it's repeated. That's what makes the change real and lasting. Now, let's take this one level deeper. When you commit to consistent action, you also build something called self-efficacy, the belief that you can influence your own outcomes. That belief is like armor against negative thinking, because negativity thrives in helplessness. It grows when you feel like nothing you do matters, but when you show yourself, again and again, that your actions create change, even small change, you dismantle that helplessness. You prove to your brain that it's not trapped. That progress is possible, that you are the kind of person who takes responsibility, not the kind of person who waits to feel better before doing better. This is a long game, and your brain doesn't reward you immediately for consistency. Sometimes it feels like you're doing the work and nothing is changing, but under the surface, the system is shifting, the new wiring is being built, you just can't see it yet, and that's why consistency requires trust, not in the results, but in the process. You keep showing up, not because it feels amazing every time, but because you understand that this is the cost of transformation. You don't need to feel like it to follow through. You just need to decide that this matters more than your comfort. The people who create massive change in their mindset don't have better genetics. They just commit to doing the small, foundational things over and over again, even when it's boring, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's hard, because they understand that repetition is how you make a new mindset real. You start with the breath, with focus, with movement, with showing up for yourself day after day until the old patterns weaken and the new ones become who you are. Not because of a single breakthrough, but because you showed up when it counted consistently. In the end, killing negative thinking isn't about eliminating every bad thought. It's about building enough evidence, enough habits, enough internal strength that those thoughts lose their power. And that kind of resilience is earned through consistency,